Cliffjumper, try your glass gas!
While Cliffjumper is often known as a red-colored Bumblebee, he is actually one of the fiercest Autobots who has been part of the Transformers lore since 1984. He was first introduced as a part of Hasbro's first toy line for Transformers, and he was initially released as an Autobot mini-vehicle. Cliffjumper was famously known for his hatred towards the Decepticons, and he was one of the Autobots who eagerly jumped into battle and defended his fellow troops. He also appeared in the original Transformers series as well as a recent Bumblebee movie, and today we will explore his origins and tell you everything about Cliffjumper. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Cliffjumper? Exploring his backstory. Cliffjumper was one of the fiercest Autobots who appeared in the Transformers series right from the Generation 1 continuity, and he has also made his presence known across various comics, movies, and animated series surrounding the Transformers. He was known for his glass gas weapon that could shatter any metal-like glass. He was one of the Transformers aboard the Ark when it crashed on Earth around 4 million years ago, and he was then revived in 1984 when he was chosen to be a part of their first field expedition on Earth. He worked under Prowl's command and headed to a drive-in theater with his team, but their simple mission soon became much more difficult when the Decepticons arrived at the scene and launched a battle. Cliffjumper single-handedly fought Starscream and Thundercracker by using his glass gas, and he later even assisted Optimus Prime on his mission to rescue a human named Sparkplug Witwicky from the Decepticons' base of operations. However, Cliffjumper could not make himself useful in this mission after being cornered by the human military, and he temporarily disappeared from view when the Decepticons tried to occupy the Ark. Cliffjumper was later seen strung to the ceiling in a deactivated form when Shockwave had occupied the Ark, but one of the Autobots named Ratchet intervened and managed to reclaim the Ark. Ratchet then repaired Cliffjumper, and the other Autobots who were captured by Shockwave and Cliffjumper soon returned to his normal state. Over the next few story arcs, Cliffjumper was once attacked by Optimus Prime's imposter, but he soon recovered after Ratchet once again revived him. After being repaired, Cliffjumper was at the scene when the Autobots allied with Cobra to defeat the Decepticons, and even G.I. Joe joined this battle on their side. In future timelines, Cliffjumper was seen with Optimus Prime on one of Cybertron's moons as they continued to fight against the Decepticons.
Better in my viewfinder.
He featured extensively in the Transformers animated series. Cliffjumper was also a part of the Transformers animated series in 1984, wherein Casey Kasem voiced his character. Cliffjumper first appeared in an episode titled More Than Meets the Eye Part 1, wherein the Autobots leave Cybertron in search of energy sources. When the Autobots were on the brink of extinction after being at constant war with the Decepticons for millions of years, they needed more resources and energy supplies to sustain themselves. While Wheeljack and Bumblebee find a few energy conductors and venture on an adventure to bring them to Cybertron, they find themselves cornered by Decepticon forces. They somehow escape this attack and end up at a small fortress, while Optimus Prime and the other Autobots also head out to find energy elsewhere. Laserbeak and Soundwave spy on the Autobots and learn about their plan, while the Decepticon leader, Megatron, also decides to head out to fight the Autobots. In his absence, Megatron leaves Shockwave in charge, and Starscream bitterly believes that they would have won the war by now if only he had been appointed as the leader instead. While the Autobots board their spaceship and try to locate new resources, the Decepticons chase after them in their cruiser, which eventually results in both the ships crashing on the Earth's surface. Around 4 million years later, the Autobots' ship computer system somehow come back to life due to some volcanic activity, and it sends a message and reactivates all the Transformers on board the ship. After returning to life, Cliffjumper was quite eager to get back in action and even volunteered to go along with Hound on their recon mission to find some Decepticons. While Optimus Prime orders Cliffjumper to only locate the Decepticons, he goes a step ahead and tries to attack them. However, he misses his shot and even gets noticed by the Decepticons, who then send Laserbeak to chase him and the other Autobots away. While Cliffjumper does not suffer much damage, Laserbeak targets Hound with one of his laser blasts, severely injuring him. Eventually, the Autobot medic Ratchet comes to Hound's rescue and repairs him, while Cliffjumper realizes that he should have acted smarter instead of jumping right into the action. The second part part of this episode focused on the Decepticons as they continued to steal energy resources from Earth, while the Autobots regrouped and tried to devise a plan to stop them. Cliffjumper assisted the Autobots at Sherman Dam while they tried to fight the Decepticons trying to steal energy from there. He had even fought Thundercracker and Skywarp during this conflict and struggled to fend them off on his own. Later, another Autobot named Mirage comes to Cliffjumper's rescue and helps him defeat the Decepticons. Cliffjumper even praises him for his fighting abilities. Cliffjumper later appeared in the third part of the story arc titled More Than Meets the Eye Part 3, wherein the Autobots tried to lure the Decepticons into a trap. The Autobots had planned to trap the Decepticons in a holographic trap, but their plan had failed as the Decepticons had already gotten wind of their plans and had sent decoys in their place. Meanwhile, the real Decepticons used this time to steal more energy resources from Earth and decided to return to Cybertron with them. During the huge blast at the Ruby Crystal mines in Burma, Optimus Prime was also injured due to the explosion, and Cliffjumper stood by his side and cheered him up while he recovered from the blast. For the next few episodes, the Decepticons stayed on the low for a while and finally reappeared in an episode titled Transport to Oblivion. The episode began with the Autobots presuming that the Decepticons had all died. When Cliffjumper saw a rock that resembled a Decepticon, he immediately tried to attack it. He soon realizes that he was just blasted a rock, and he even gets embarrassed and apologizes for his rushed actions. However, Optimus Prime also states that he is skeptical about the Decepticons' demise and that they still might be on Earth. As it turns out, the Decepticons were still out there and had even taken over a human power station. They even caused a citywide blackout, finally informing the Autobots of their presence. While Optimus Prime and the other Autobots head out to face Megatron and his troops, Cliffjumper immediately targets Megatron and decides to confront him. While Cliffjumper's offensive nature helped him in other scenarios, he hardly stood a chance against Megatron, who easily defeated him without any effort. Cliffjumper did not give up, and he later even attacked Starscream, but this again did not end well for him. He also appeared in an episode titled Divide and Conquer, wherein the Autobots had intercepted the Decepticons at a hydroelectric power plant. The Decepticons were trying to fill their energon cubes with the energy from the plant, but Cliffjumper and the Autobots fought fiercely and drained most of their energy sources. The Decepticons soon retreated after accepting defeat, while the Autobots realized that Optimus Prime was gravely injured in the battle. Cliffjumper was one of the Autobots who anxiously waited for Ratchet to repair Prime, as he finally healed himself and challenged Megatron to a fight by the end of the episode. Cliffjumper played quite a huge role in the episode Fire in the Sky, wherein the Decepticons had tapped into a crystal shaft at the Arctic Circle in order to siphon energy directly from the Earth's core. While they were busy siphoning off this energy to power their energon cubes, the Autobots' computer, Teletran-1, detected their presence at the Arctic Circle, and they soon decided to send an assault team. Moreover, two humans named Spike and Sparkplug were also trapped on an ice floe, and the Autobots headed to rescue them. However, the two humans were taken away by Skyfire before the Autobots could get them to safety. While Skyfire was lost between choosing the Autobots or Decepticons, Cliffjumper teamed up with Ironhide to rescue the two humans when Optimus Prime intervened and asked them to stop. Prime was worried that their effort to save the humans might hurt them, and he suggested an underground rescue. They took an alternate route to approach the humans and discovered them trapped in an ice prison. While Prime ordered them to follow a search pattern, Cliffjumper went against orders and approached the humans to break them free. However, Cliffjumper was then attacked by Ravage, and Prime had to step in to save him. As the episode ended, Skyfire sacrificed his life to help the Autobots, and they all gathered together while Ratchet tried to revive him. Cliffjumper even questions why they were trying to repair a Decepticon like Skyfire, but Optimus Prime stands his ground and acknowledges Skyfire's change of heart. Cliffjumper was also present when the newly formed Dinobots were unveiled in an episode titled SOS Dinobots, wherein Cliffjumper was quite baffled to see these new creatures. He continued to partake in various missions along with the Autobots. He even assisted them in a mission in Peru to prevent Megatron from using the Crystal of Power to fire his cannon into fire on the mountain episode. While these are just a few episodes where Cliffjumper showed his strength, he had a widespread presence in the Transformers series, and he has appeared in countless other episodes across the seasons.
Cybertron. And no rebellion is truly dead until the leader is vanquished.
Cliffjumper appeared briefly in the Bumblebee movie. Cliffjumper also appeared in the Bumblebee film, where his character was voiced by Andrew Morgado. He appeared as one of the Autobots who were trying to defend against the attacks of the Decepticons. These Decepticons were led by Shockwave and Soundwave, and Optimus Prime finally ordered Cliffjumper and the other Autobots to retreat. Prime also called them to journey across the galaxy and Earth to find the other Autobots, and Cliffjumper soon left in an escape pod to do so. After a few years in 1987, Cliffjumper was caught amid an attack orchestrated by the Decepticon hunters Shatter and Dropkick on one of Saturn's moons. The duo was trying to locate Optimus Prime, and they asked Cliffjumper about him, but Cliffjumper promptly refused to give up his location. This was of little use, as the Decepticons finally picked up on Bumblebee's signal on Earth and went after him. However, Dropkick cruelly decided to kill Cliffjumper before leaving and killed him by slitting his body sideways. Exploring the IDW movie comics featuring Cliffjumper. Cliffjumper was also a part of the IDW movie comics, in which Cliffjumper and Bumblebee would guard the Allspark together at Simfer. The two of them even looked similar, and Cliffjumper often had to keep Bumblebee engaged as he got bored and anxious of just sitting around on guard. Cliffjumper reasoned with him by saying that they were essentially the defense force, and that the other Autobots may also be bored of just patrolling around. He even suggested that they should relax and wait until anyone approaches them, and he soon regretted saying this as a bunch of hostile aliens had launched an attack on Cybertron. The two of them were cornered by these aliens, until Megatron finally came to their rescue and even defeated most of the aliens. He then lectured Cliffjumper and Bumblebee for not being more proactive in fighting the aliens, but he was also cornered and attacked by one of the aliens. Finally, Starscream arrived at the scene, but Megatron got rid of him by telling him to steer clear of Optimus Prime's team. As the story progressed, Bumblebee sensed that a big war was coming their way, but Cliffjumper shrugged it off by saying that they didn't have to do much and only stayed at the Simfer to guard the Allspark. Meanwhile, Prowl and Jazz also visited them to investigate the aliens' attacks, and Cliffjumper promptly told them that the Allspark seemed fine and did not display any unusual activity while they were under attack. After some time, Optimus Prime held a meeting with his security personnel, advising them not to engage in the war under Megatron's lead. When Megatron learned that Optimus Prime and his forces were snooping around his quarters, he asked Cliffjumper and Bumblebee to accompany his security officers to arrest Optimus Prime on some fake charges of treason. As they traveled to Trypticon, we learned that this was all an elaborate scheme orchestrated by Megatron, and that he had sent his soldiers to kill everyone on this trip, including Bumblebee and Cliffjumper. While Cliffjumper was unaware of Megatron's double-sided plan, he dodged the soldiers' attacks and fled to safety in Berthov. After arriving at Berthov, Cliffjumper got into a fight with one of Megatron's ex-soldiers, Ironhide, who was confident that he could easily overwhelm Cliffjumper with his weapons. However, Cliffjumper noticed that Ironhide only had some huge cannons on his side, and that he could not do much harm here. While Ironhide conceded by stating that he was not in a mood to fight, the rebel forces took him to see Prime while Cliffjumper waited for Prime's orders about their future missions. In the meantime, the war was becoming increasingly prevalent, and Optimus Prime had decided to launch the Allspark into space to counter the Decepticons' nemesis and bring them some temporary peace. Cliffjumper was also part of the mission to steal Energon from Trypticon, which was under the control of the Decepticons at the time. Cliffjumper's team was ambushed by Shockwave's forces, who even shot him in the chest. However, Cliffjumper survived the attack and even regrouped with the Autobots later. After the destruction of the Allspark and Megatron's death, Cliffjumper decided to go to Mars under the command of Arcee, and he even attacked Starscream's ship on Mars. Cliffjumper's forces managed to defend themselves from most of the Decepticons' attacks, but they did not expect Thundercracker to wield his sonic weaponry. Cliffjumper paired with Camshaft to defend their forces, but Thundercracker went after them and even killed Camshaft. Cliffjumper was also gravely injured during this attack, and Arcee saved him at the last minute. While Arcee tries to ensure Cliffjumper gets to safety at the last minute, Starscream shoots at Cliffjumper from behind, and later even targets Arcee. While Arcee tried to save herself, she could no longer take care of Cliffjumper, and he was left behind on this mission. However, Soundwave later scanned the place and only found 2 Autobot corpses that did not resemble Cliffjumper, and they deduced that he may have recovered and escaped.
Autobots, fall back! Get to the tower!
Why was he not part of Michael Bay's Transformers movies? While it would have been great to see Cliffjumper in action, he was sadly not a part of Michael Bay's Transformers movies, but Cliffjumper was actually on a mission as a part of the Autobots' assault team on Mars during the events of the Transformers movies, and he was sent there under Arcee's command. After some conflicts with the Decepticons, Soundwave discovered 2 Autobot corpses there, and it was suggested that Cliffjumper survived and set out on his own in the universe. Sadly, his character has often been killed way too early in various media or sent away on missions, and it would have been admittedly nice to see his character in action in a Transformers movie.
Cease fire and move it!
What makes Cliffjumper such an effective Autobot? Cliffjumper was known for his hatred toward the Decepticons, and was always ready to partake in any battle against them. He was quite a daring entity who waited for any opportunity to defeat evil, and he sometimes even ended up in trouble due to his policy of shooting first and asking questions later. Cliffjumper was quite dedicated to working with Optimus Prime, but his hatred for the Decepticons often overrode any of his other emotions, and he sometimes even blamed the other Autobots for not working hard enough. However, he was usually quite a friendly character who went along with the other Autobots and even looked out for them in battle. He also loved to talk about his experiences and share his battle stories with others. Being one of the toughest Autobots of all time, he could shoot various Vehicons with his fists. He even had fought against tough opponents such as Shockwave and had 6 ion cannon blasters on each hand. He was well known for his glass gas weapon that could shatter any metal as if it were a piece of glass, but he also used some other weapons such as a plasma cannon and an energy blade. In the Bumblebee film, Cliffjumper was even seen using a machine gun. Cliffjumper operated in a robot mode as well as a vehicle mode, showcasing his red body with 2 white horns on his head as a robot. In this mode, he had blue eyes and wore a black belt in the middle of his body that also had headlights. While operating in the vehicle mode, Cliffjumper could transform into a red 1970 Dodge Challenger that had 2 horns on the hood and Zoomy-style exhausts on either side. Conclusion: Cliffjumper was one of the most efficient Autobots who ever fought by Optimus Prime's side, and he has made his appearance well known across the Transformers franchise. He commands the respect of his team members and even appears as a huge threat to the Decepticons, and we would have loved to see him in action in more Transformers movies and comics. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.